begin today with two big questions. Is America safe, and are you safe? Well, today we got some answers from Capitol Hill. There were two hearings happening simultaneously in the U.S. Senate. Up first, President Trump's top intelligence chiefs, DNI, CIA, and FBI.
The United States continues to face a complex and evolving threat landscape with a geographically diverse set of Islamist terrorist actors seeking to propagate their ideology globally and harm Americans.
Senator Mike Rounds was inside that room. What does he think about the threats to our homeland? I'll speak with the senator later this hour. And the other hearing today in the Senate, a confirmation hearing, which is essentially a job interview. It's for President Trump's pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin is that pick. This means today Mullin got grilled by his own Senate colleagues.
Is it a good time for DHS to be shut down?
Sir, I think with the current conditions, this is the worst time we could possibly do it.
Committee member, Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst was in that hearing. I'm going to speak with Senator Ernst about her experience with the DHS pick today, including her trip to Syria with the nominee. Also ahead, is it necessary to test drugs meant for humans on animals? The head of the FDA, Dr. Marty Makary, joins me here in the studio in a few moments. But first, the toughest job for any president. Today, President Trump honoring 6 American service members killed during the war against Iran. The president attending a dignified transfer in Dover, Delaware. Last week, these 6 airmen were on board a refueling plane serving Operation Epic Fury. The plane crashed in Iraq. This is the second dignified transfer in 2 weeks that President Trump has attended. 13 U.S. members have died thus far in this war. And now to a shocking death in Iran. It was an execution. According to Sweden, which is a NATO ally, Iran executed a Swedish citizen. According to the Iranian media, the person is Kourash Kayvani. Iranian media says he was arrested in June, and Iran claims that the Swedish national was spying for Israel's Mossad. Sweden says he did not get due process. He was executed in an undisclosed location. We don't know if it's a public hanging or not. Iran does do public hangings to have a deterrent or political impact. Israel has yet to respond. And right now, Israel is dealing with the aftermath of a cluster bomb attack from Iran. 2 people have been killed. It happened near Tel Aviv. Senior correspondent John Huddy is live in Tel Aviv, where it's 10:02 p.m. John?
Yeah, and Greta, as you mentioned, 2 people were killed, more than a dozen others injured in several cluster bomb attacks that happened today in Ramat Gan, basically the Tel Aviv region in central Israel, which has come under, constant attack and targeting by the Iranians. Actually, we were reporting, Greta, on one of the attacks that happened very early this morning in the Tel Aviv suburb of Ramat Gan, when another cluster bomb strike happened literally just around the corner. We heard sirens. We went into a shelter. When we came out, we saw emergency vehicles heading to a location. We ran around the corner, up a hill, and got there. And we got exclusive video inside an apartment that was destroyed. You could see the hole where the cluster bomb came tearing into that apartment. Fortunately, no one was injured in that strike. We talked to a resident who was literally in the next apartment. They were in the building right when it happened, just right after it happened. Here's in part what she told me.
Yeah, what happened?
Okay.
I was in the safe room.
And what did you hear?
In the bomb shelter. I heard a big boom.
Yeah.
A very, very big boom. And that's my apartment, my neighbor's apartment. The adjacent apartment was kind of destroyed, but we're all fine.
Yeah, and Greta, in the bomb shelter we were in, we heard a big boom too, and we were probably about 300 meters from that home. Early this morning, as I mentioned, around 1 a.m. local time, 2 people were killed, an elderly couple in their 70s, when another cluster bomb blew through the roof of their apartment, also in Ramat Gan. They were found just tragically a few feet from their bomb shelter. Unfortunately, they didn't make it inside in time.
They are going after our grandfathers, our grandmothers, our daughters, our women. They are going after civilians, just as they did towards their own civilians. Just remind you and the viewers, they slaughtered thousands of civilians in Iran. Now they are going after Israeli civilians. This is the nature of this regime.
Now, the IDF has intercepted an estimated 85 to 95% of the Iranian ballistic missiles fired on the country, specifically with the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 missile defense systems, part of Israel's multi-layered defense systems. We actually got an up-close look on Tuesday at an Arrow missile defense battery at an airbase in Israel. The challenge, though, Greta, is that the Iranian ballistic missile warheads are loaded with these cluster munitions that are dispersed, basically detonated from that warhead before the missile is intercepted by an Israeli missile. And while the frequency and the number of these Iranian missile barrages are decreasing, as I've been reporting, the use of these dangerous and, as we've seen, deadly cluster bombs in these warheads and what's left of Iran's ballistic missile arsenal really appears to be increasing at this point. Greta?
John, you know, we look at that night shot behind you and Tel Aviv all lit up. It looks like Chicago. I mean, it just looks like any ordinary big, American city. And you listen to that woman who you first talked to, whose the apartment was blown up next to hers, and she says, "We're all fine." I mean, it seems like these people are so stoic and so accustomed to this. I mean, that it's stunning to me. How this is their way of life, is it not?
Well, it is. And in fact, my photographer, who's standing literally behind the camera, Elon, his children live in the building next door to where the cluster bomb killed that elderly couple today. I mean, that's how, and his children are basically sleeping in their protected room, the bomb shelter inside their apartment. So this is just a fact of life. And look, when these alerts go off on the phones, and you've heard them, and I've reported about this, you have a few minutes, it could be 5 or 10 minutes to get into a protected space, to get into a reinforced room in your apartment or a bomb shelter. And that's where people are going into, because at this point, you don't know where these cluster munitions or these cluster bombs are coming down. And the Iranians, as I said, are really targeting central Israel and these areas, Ramat Gan, Bnei Barak, which is a religious community, a religious area just outside of Tel Aviv, very close to Ramat Gan. They're really targeting these civilian areas and civilian populations.
It's just stunning, what's going on there. John Huddy, thank you. And as we've been reporting for weeks, the Iran war is also affecting Americans' wallets. Gas prices have been up. The current national average is $3.84 a gallon. That is up 92 cents a gallon from a month ago. So did oil prices, and the Iran war factor into today's Federal Reserve decision to not lower rates? Fed Chair Jerome Powell gave his assessment.
The implications of developments in the Middle East for the U.S. economy are uncertain. We will remain attentive to risks to both sides of our dual mandate. And I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments.
How did the markets react to Powell's news? Well, about 8 minutes ago, Wall Street closed for the day. The Dow finished down 1.64%, the S&P 500 down 1.36%, and the NASDAQ down 1.46%. Coming up, what is the truth about Iran's nuclear program? I know what I was told right here by the man dealing directly with the Iranians, but apparently there's been some dissent in the administration. That when the record continues.
The 47th President of the United States of America.
And, I wouldn't say Fox has been exactly perfect. Fox has been a big difference of Fox between now and what it was 4 years ago, as you know. But we have others that come along, and they're doing well, and Newsmax has been really good, and, others are coming along. And people are seeing that they're watching these conservative networks.
President Trump is right. That's why millions of Americans are tuning into Newsmax for the real news they can trust.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. no mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for, a simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Omaha Steaks semi-annual sale is back. Save 50% site-wide on America's best steaks, chicken, burgers, and more. All backed by our 100% guarantee. Right now, you'll get 12 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
Is there anything to indicate that Iran had ceased in its nuclear ambitions or in its desire to continue to build ballistic missiles capable of threatening American troops and allies in the Middle East?
Senator, no. In fact, the intelligence reflects the contrary.
So you disagree with Mr. Kent?
I do.
Well, it's the talk of Washington, Joe Kent. Until he used government stationery yesterday to call it quits, he was a top counterterrorism official in the Trump administration. His resignation letter, which he posted on X, shocked Washington, but the story may get more controversial. That's because Joe Kent, besides being the director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center and a retired U.S. Special Forces soldier whose wife died in a suicide bombing by ISIS in Syria, will appear tonight on Tucker Carlson's podcast. What is significant about what he might say in the podcast? We are tipped off by his resignation letter. In that resignation letter, Kent said, quote, "I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby," end quote. Tucker Carlson has been a vocal critic of Israel and this war. What makes Kent's resignation letter more puzzling is what Kent said years ago. Last night, President Trump posted a screenshot on Truth Social of what Kent said back in 2020 about Iran. Kent said, quote, "We should not sit back and wait for the next attack, wipe Iran's ballistic capability out, and get our troops out of Iraq. They're only targets now," end quote. That's exactly what President Trump appears to be doing now. He says he's wiping out Iran's ballistic capability. Yesterday, President Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson did not hold back when asked about Kent's resignation.
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people.
I don't know where Joe Kent is getting his information, but he wasn't in those briefings.
And you did not have to be in those briefings to know that Iran was a threat. You could have watched this program and heard yourself from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Last week, Special Envoy Witkoff described the nuclear talks with Iran's foreign minister. He was inside the room with them. It included this daunting message.
In the first session that we had with them, he acknowledged, even boasted, that they had 460 kilograms of 60% enriched material. That 60% enriched material is roughly 1 week to 10 days away from being 90% weapons grade. That's a statistical fact. He then said, you and I both know that is roughly 11 bombs worth of material. So that's valuable. And you know we have it, and we know we have it. What are we going to do about it? That's how that session began.
Professor Emeritus of Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Nice to see you again, sir. Steve Witkoff was inside the room doing all the negotiations for the United States Iran's foreign minister tells him that, which certainly seems like an imminent threat to me. And now we have sort of this movement of people saying that Iran was not an imminent threat, and also the touch of saying that it's the Jewish people, Israel, influenced the president. So your thought?
Well, first of all, to say Iran was not an imminent threat is to say that Nazi Germany wasn't an imminent threat in early 1939. Imminence is a function of certainty. And there's no doubt that Iran was trying to develop nuclear weapons, and they were eventually going to use it against America, American allies, and America's friends. There's no doubt about that. And there's also no doubt that this character is a vicious anti-Semite, a Nazi supporter, somebody who has blamed everything on Israel. Let me give you an example of a blatant lie. In his letter, he says that Israel got the United States into the Iraq war. I know for a fact, because I was there in the room, that the Prime Minister of Israel, Ariel Sharon, told the United States not to go into Iraq. They have picked the wrong eye. They should be attacking Iran, not Iraq. But this guy just lied categorically because he blames everything on Israel. What he's saying basically is that Israel is at fault for everything. Israel is behind all the decisions. Donald Trump is really a puppet of Israel. It's the most insulting thing he could say about the president of the United States. I know both the president of the United States and Netanyahu, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that President Trump will never be pushed into starting a war because of Netanyahu. I can give you that assurance based on personal information. And so this guy ought to be ignored. I'm so glad he's out of the government. He is relegated to the dustbin of history. He's now going on Tucker Carlson, where these two Nazi lovers will make love to each other rhetorically and blame everything on Israel. This is an attempt to try to hijack the Republican Party, to try to turn the Republican Party into what's happening with the Democrats, with the extreme left. Now you have the extreme right trying to turn the Republicans into an anti-Semitic party. It has to be resisted. President Trump is right. The country is better off without this guy, without him, and we'll hear it, because we're going to see tonight on Tucker Carlson, you're going to see him make other anti-Semitic statements and just repeat what he says. His whole theory is that Jews are to blame for everything. This is Nazi Germany back in 1935, repeated in the United States of America this year. It has to stop.
I tell you where it's like, for me, it's like, is that I don't want to give oxygen to anti-Semitism. I just don't. On the other hand, I know that this is something that is spreading all over the internet. Blame Israel for this. And it's, someone has got to, it's got to be called out. So I feel sort of stuck in between. On the one hand, I don't want to give oxygen to people saying that. On the other hand, I don't want to, let it go unchecked.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a hard decision to make, but what we're seeing is young people now buying into this. And it's not just anti-Israel, it's anti-Semitic. Even in the letter, he talks about the Jewish lobby. He uses other words to describe it. But what he's saying is that Jews are pulling the strings. Jews are sending your boys to harm's way. Jews are putting your gas prices up. That's the way it started in 1935 in Nazi Germany, and it has to stop now. And thankfully, President Trump will tolerate this not at all. He says that this guy is not MAGA. I'm MAGA. I'm telling you why I went to war. I went to war to protect the interests of the United States. Whether it was tomorrow or the next day, Iran was certainly going to be building nuclear weapons, and you don't wait until it's imminent. If you wait till it's imminent, it may be too late. You attack before it becomes imminent, while you have the advantage. And what happened is the United States learned and Israel learned that the leaders of Iran were meeting together. They took opportunity. They used the opportunity to attack them at one point. It was the most important thing for the United States to do, and it was a decision made by the President of the United States with the support of Israel. But we are great allies. We work together, as the President said. When the best Air Force in the world combines with the second best Air Force in the world, it can accomplish miracles, and we're accomplishing miracles by putting Iran in its place. Iran is the greatest threat to peace in the world today. And if it can be conquered, and if it can be demilitarized, the world benefits. And people like Joe Kent ought to go back to their rocks below the earth and understand that Americans can recognize a Nazi when we see one.
Well, I purposely replayed that Steve Witkoff soundbite because I do not believe Steve Witkoff lied to me. And when he's on the show, I went through step by step what went behind the curtains. And when you've got Iran saying that they're essentially 11 days away from the bomb, that that did it for me. But Professor Alan Dershowitz,
earlier,
I got to go.
He changed his mind when it came to attacking Israel and attacking Jews. So he ought to be ignored. God, he's no longer in the government.
Professor Dershowitz, thank you. Coming up, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary joins me next with good news for animals and for animal lovers. That when the record continues.
Hi, I'm Bianca Della Garza. What I love about working with Newsmax is the relationship we have with our viewers. So smart, so informed, it allows us to deliver powerful analysis, the sharpest viewpoints on the issues that really matter.
3, 2, 1. I found Tunnel to Towers just through a TV commercial. I was like, oh, I wonder if they help out injured first responders. So when the towers did reach out, it was awesome.
Men and women like Jay Youngblood, who served their country, are so deserving of their independence and the ability to take care of their children and provide for them. And that's what the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is doing when we give them a house.
Tunnel to Towers shows there's still humanity out there. Please donate $11 a month to t2t.org.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors. At their peaks, Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Danny trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm a retired military veteran, had 43 years of service. I wanted to stay active in my community, so I work as a volunteer at national parks. After I retired, I was looking for something for my brain. I started taking Prevagen, and I definitely noticed it made a difference. I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years. If you really care about your brain, I recommend taking Prevagen.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
The U.S. is phasing out animal testing in drug research. Today, the Food and Drug Administration released draft guidance on alternatives to animal testing. According to the FDA, the guidance will, quote, help drug developers validate new approach methodologies to be used instead of animal testing in drug development and to bring safe, effective drugs to market sooner based on human-centric data, end quote. And also today, the National Institute of Health announced it will invest $150 million in human-based research. Human-based obviously means not animal-based. Commissioner for the Food and Drug Administration, before that, a very distinguished surgeon at Johns Hopkins University Hospital, Dr. Marty Makary joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to be with you, Greta.
Nice to have you. All right, I'm a great animal lover. I'm even a vegan. But tell me, this decision to phase out doing animal research is why?
Well, first of all, animal testing is just not very good when it comes to testing drugs. 90% of drugs that pass animal testing don't pass human testing for safety and efficacy. So animals can't talk to you. They can't tell you if they're not feeling well. Turns out we've got much better technologies now. Computational modeling can look at a molecule and predict if it's going to be toxic. There's also cell lines in a lab where you can give the drug to a culture and see how the cells react. Turns out together, those technologies are better, safer, cheaper, and more humane than testing animals.
Why didn't we do this sooner? Is it just the new administration? There's a new sheriff in town?
Well, look, in this administration, we're looking for efficiencies. We're looking to cut the waste in the system. We want to promote American businesses, companies that are developing drugs in the United States. And when we have a goal of lowering drug prices, that means looking at the R&D costs. By cutting out, for example, with monoclonal antibodies, cutting out 144 chimpanzees routinely used for testing, which we just did. That shortens the time to approval, delivering amazing treatments to patients faster, and lowers the R&D cost, which translates to lower drug prices. And that's a massive priority for President Trump.
This question I think maybe others have, and I have, is what happened to the 140 chimpanzees? Where are they?
Look, many of those experiments were done in China. It was about $50,000 per monkey to do experiments. There were labs set up where companies could come and send their drug over, and they would do the testing. We don't need to be doing it for many.
Those other countries still going to be doing that with the animals? So it's while the United States has made a decision to use more effective and faster means, are other countries still going to be using this basically on this old manner?
Some are, and some are not. Some have moved on to the new technologies. But you know, at the FDA, when we came in, it turns out that we were still requiring 2 species of animal testing for a new drug, even if the drug was already approved in Europe and used in millions of people. So we're using common sense.
And when the animals came and say it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just not a good model. There are much better models now using computational modeling, computerized technology, AI to predict, is this molecule going to cause problems to your liver, heart, muscle, whatever it may be. We can do that now with computer modeling instead of the old injecting 100 bunny rabbits.
How long, do you have any, I guess, is it a matter by drug or by animal, how much you're compressing this time, how much faster it'll be?
Yes, it turns out certain areas of drug development, certain classes of drugs are more ripe for this new methodology, the organ on a culture technology and the computational modeling. So monoclonal antibodies are a giant, fast-growing area. Biologics are another one. They're the most expensive area of drug spend in the United States. And so we're reducing the red tape. It's not just with animal testing. There was a requirement that for an expensive biologic, you had to go do a whole nother clinical trial, a randomized trial, if you were going to make a generic version. And so we said, look, you don't have to do that trial. We haven't been requiring it for smaller molecules. We're not going to require it for the larger molecules. That saves $300 million per medication. That means lower drug prices for everyday Americans.
But are they still doing animal testing for cosmetics?
Yes, there have been.
That's still being done?
Well, it is being done, much less now. When we came in, we've got cages that are empty. We've got animal facilities with no more animals in it. We have a roadmap to move with regulation and rulemaking to less and less animal testing. Suntan lotion is another one. We don't need to be using animals to tell whether or not a lotion on the skin is absorbed in the body. We can tell from the size of the molecule and how lipophilic that is how much it penetrates the skin. You don't need all these animal testing. So we're going to be reducing tens of millions of dollars and thousands of animals each year from the unnecessary testing that goes on.
So it's faster, it's more effective, and all the animal lovers won't be shedding the tears. So that's wonderful.
And it's better prediction.
Better prediction. And it works better.
Yes.
Sir, thank you very much. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
And every parent's worst nightmare, 20-year-old University of Alabama student James Gracie is missing. According to Gracie's mother, Therese Gracie, over this spring break, he was visiting friends studying abroad in Barcelona, Spain. Gracie was last seen by a friend around 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning at the waterfront Choco restaurant and nightclub. He was wearing a white T-shirt, dark pants, and a gold chain with a rhinestone cross. Family spokesperson Noreen Herron told the media that Gracie never made it back to the Airbnb that he and his friends had rented in the center of Barcelona. But police did recover Gracie's phone during the arrest of another individual. Gracie's father has flown to Spain. He's in touch with the local authorities looking for his son. The family is also in touch with State Department officials. Coming up, President Trump's new pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security, Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, in the hot seat. That when the record continues.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Buying a new car? You need WeatherTech. Perhaps a nice used car. You need WeatherTech. Or maybe you're still driving Old Faithful. You need WeatherTech. No matter the age of your vehicle, American-made WeatherTech products are the solution. Because messes don't care what year your vehicle is. See? You do need WeatherTech. Order your American-made protection at WT.com.
The name's Hampton. I know, I look a lot more put together, right? But hey, I've come a long way from my Humpty days. This is bad. See, I've learned a thing or two about crashes and falls. Ooh, on fire. Turns out you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Oh, tempting. That's why I invest with Willow Wealth. Their online platform makes it simple to diversify my portfolio with private markets. I get exposure to everything from fine art and real estate. Evocative, right? Still got it. To sports and entertainment. Whoa, easy there. Plus, portfolios including private markets have outperformed traditional ones for the past 20 years. Not that it's a competition. Diversify your portfolio to help rise above public market volatility and level up your game. Like me. Those who know.
Is it cold? It looks cold.
Willow Wealth.
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
Bad news, Bulldogs. Sidelined for the season.
Limits on who can contact teens.
Ouch!
How are we gonna win without you?
And content settings now inspired by 13+ movie ratings.
Hey, Slater, we're gonna win this one for you, bud.
You up for this?
Instagram teen accounts with automatic protections.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Pump up the volume. Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
We're talking to people today about investments. Let's see if we can get somebody. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a retirement account?
I do. I'm invested in some annuities.
Fixed income? How is that?
It was better a few years ago. Each year, it buys less and less, barely keeping up.
That's where gold can make a difference. Unlike fixed payouts, gold rises with inflation, so you're not stuck with a low fixed payment.
So gold isn't stuck in the past like my annuity?
Don't let inflation erode your retirement savings. Invest in gold. Invest with Noble Gold Investments.
It was not completely all smooth sailing for President Trump's pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security. Today, Senator Markwayne Mullin testified before his Senate colleagues on the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Here are a few highlights from Mullin's testimony, including the showdown between Senator Rand Paul and Senator Markwayne Mullin.
Haven't heard the word apologize, haven't heard the word regret, haven't heard I misspoke and it was heated and I made a mistake. Haven't heard any of those words.
Sir, actually, it wasn't heated. and I'm not apologizing for pointing out your character.
Good. So you're jolly well fine, and you want the American public and the people up here to vote, that may or may not vote for you, to know that you supported the felonious, violent attack on me from behind.
I did not say I supported it. I said I understood it. There's a difference.
I came here and I committed to come here with an open mind, and I'm going to continue to do that. And it's not going to be about gotcha moments. For me, it's about just saying, my experience with you has been consistent kindness and professionalism.
If there's a fatality shooting, there's another agency that oversees them. And in this case, it'd be the FBI, who is set up inside the DOJ to investigate those.
So you've answered no, and your answer would make ICE unaccountable, and that endangers not just the rule of law, but also the security of all Americans.
Is this a good time for the Department of Homeland Security to be shut down and unfunded?
It's the worst time, and keep in mind, we just came up a 43-day shutdown, and this is the third time in a year, and it's devastating to the morale of the men and women we have tasked to take care of all of us.
As of today, DHS has been shut down 32 days. Yesterday on this news show, I spoke with TSA officer Angela Granat. She is also the regional vice president of the labor union AFGE Local 1127. That union represents 38 airports, including more than 4,000 TSA employees. Here's what she said about this shutdown and how painful it is.
A lot of our officers are dual officers. In other words, both husband and wife work at the airport. Both husband and wife work for TSA. How are they managing with zero income? It's not fair. And our job requires us to have a perfect credit score. So that's going to be another issue for us, to repair our credit reports. Our officers that are calling out, they're not calling out on purpose. They're calling out because they can't get to work, because they can't afford the gas to get to work. Some of them are spending the night at the airport because it's warmer than sleeping in their car, and they can't afford to go home, so they might as well just stay there. This is a security issue, and that's what it should be all about. We don't need another 9/11 again, and God forbid something happens, and that's what makes them start to work together. I don't want that on my watch.
Iowa U.S. Senator and member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Senator Joni Ernst joins me. Nice to see you, Senator. In terms of how the Senate operates, it's pretty clear that Senator Rand Paul and doesn't like Senator Markwayne Mullin, and maybe in reverse. But tell me, can the chairman of the committee prevent his name, Senator Markwayne Mullin's name, from going to the floor for a full vote? Does the chairman have that kind of power?
Well, Greta, one, I think your synopsis is accurate. There is obviously a disagreement between the chair and Senator Markwayne Mullin. Can the senator prevent it? Sure. The chairman, if he votes no, and we get enough people to vote no, it will prevent that nominee from moving forward. But I think there is enough support on our committee to move Senator Mullin's nomination. I, for one, am fully in favor of President Trump's pick. Markwayne Mullin is one of my closest friends in the United States Senate. He is a patriot. He is one of the hardest workers that you will find. And I believe that he will provide much needed leadership, that blunt directness that we need right now. But he also works across the aisle. He has been working with Democrats and Republicans on these issues that are really important. Rand is not doing that. Matter of fact, he is working against Donald J. Trump and Republicans on this nomination.
There was a discussion about his overseas trips. I couldn't quite figure it out as I was listening. Mm-hmm. I mean, I assume that Markwayne Mullin's willing to reveal all of them, but some of them seemed classified, and that he didn't want to tell them, or that he shouldn't tell them out public. I couldn't quite figure that out. But he also took, I think, a trip with you overseas.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So, one, let's address Senator Markwayne Mullin did have a trip at one point that couldn't be discussed in an open forum. There was a classified meeting afterwards. I attended that meeting, as well as Senator James Lankford, a hand of Democrats. It was notable that the chairman didn't even bother to attend that secured meeting with Senator Mullin to actually ask those questions about this period of time where Senator Mullin, what he was referring to in that open session, something that he couldn't talk about openly. What he discussed in that secured classified setting following the open hearing fully satisfied any questions that I had about his engagement in this particular situation. But yes, other CODEL's congressional delegation trips I have taken with him to Syria. He is a phenomenal leader and one that is willing to work with anyone.
I'll tell you what I didn't like about the discourse, because it sort of sewed into the record that there was something sneaky or something he'd done wrong when it was a classified. And I sort of thought that, you know, that his colleagues and answering all the questions should have known that. And it's almost sort of, you know, sewed into the record that those of us sitting at home, if we didn't know that, you know, that there's probably this classified discussion, we would have thought, where was he going? Where did he go? What did he do? And I didn't quite think that was, right. I thought that was dirty pool.
It was, Greta. And so, again, the senators that were nitpicking on this particular line of questioning are those that will probably never, ever support not just Senator Markwayne Mullin, but any of President Trump's nominees for this administration. So again, Markwayne satisfied.
But what's the crime in traveling these places anyway? I mean, like, I travel to some pretty crazy places around the world. I mean, I don't understand what was sort of supposedly the dastardly thing that was done by traveling to these places. Like, was it telling state secrets? I mean, I just didn't like it.
No. I didn't either. And again, so many of us do take congressional delegation trips, and we do it at the behest of others. They're asking us to visit their countries. We're going to really research different issues, and it does take us to some crazy places. As I said, I went with Markwayne Mullin to Syria. He led the delegation. First trip, official congressional delegation into Syria in 15 years. And we met with the president of that country, who was a former member of Al-Qaeda. Okay, not our first choice, but I'll tell you what, how do we get along with other world leaders? How do we figure out a path forward? It is by meeting and hearing from those that we disagree with, because I guarantee through those conversations, we can find a thread that we can agree upon. So whether it's world leaders in really unusual places around our globe, or whether it's working with Democrats across the aisle, Markwayne Mullin has done that. He is eminently qualified to lead the Department of Homeland Security. And I thank President Trump every day for nominating my friend Markwayne Mullin.
Senator Joni Ernst of the great state of Iowa, thank you. Coming up, what are the top intelligence officials doing to prevent terror attacks here on U.S. soil? That one, the record continues.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
We are all on high alert because it's no secret that there might be sleeper cells in our country. They're ready to strike because of Iran. I don't know if you can call them sleeper cells, but just this month there have already been 4 terror attacks. On February 28th, the war started, and then the very next day at a bar in Austin, Texas, on March 1st, a gunman killed 3 people and wounded more than a dozen others. Authorities reported the gunman was wearing clothes with an Iranian flag design with the words, "Property of Allah." The gunman was shot and killed by Austin police. And then 6 days later, on March 7th, the DOJ says 2 men inspired by ISIS threw IEDs at a protest near the mayor's mansion in New York City. The homemade bombs were packed with the volatile explosive TATP, also known as the mother of Satan. Fortunately, the bombs did not detonate and no one was injured. And then last Thursday, Mohammed Baylor Jalloh opened fire at Old Dominion University in Virginia. He killed 1 person and injured 2 others. The FBI says the shooter shouted, "Allahu Akbar." He was killed by students. The shooter had previously been in prison for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. That same day, just outside Detroit, a Lebanese-born naturalized U.S. citizen drove a truck into a synagogue. The synagogue had more than 100 children inside. Fortunately, the suspect was killed by a synagogue security. Only 1 security guard was injured in the incident, and Israel says the attacker's brother was a Hezbollah commander who was killed last week in Lebanon by the Israeli Air Force. So it's not unreasonable of many Americans to be wondering, how safe are we? Are we safe? Today, the nation's intelligence leaders from the DNI, CIA, and FBI testified about threats to our homeland.
Increasingly, we are seeing less indicators of large-scale, organized, complex threats or attacks, and instead efforts focused on individuals either who have been radicalized by Islamist propaganda and may not have ever had contact with ISIS or al-Qaeda, for example, and others who have had contact, of which we are able to have more indications of.
They have transferred their capabilities in terms of personal recruitments to online recruitments, which makes any terrorist organization, including ISIS, all the more powerful. What we have done is extended and expanded resources to environments like the Threat Screening Center, which allows us to collect biometric capabilities from all over the world. We've had a double-digit increase in that and a double-digit increase in intelligence production. But what we've also done in the CT space specifically is expand the number of agents and intel analysts that go online and detect based on our biometric capabilities and intelligence that we have from the interagency. And what that leads us to is what we saw in December of last year, Senator, where we at the FBI stopped 4 terrorist attacks, 4 in California, Texas, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, 3 of which were ISIS inspired. We were able to detect these individuals both online and in person using our covert platforms, and we shuttered a bombing campaign in Southern California and 2 mass casualty events for New Year's Eve.
Republican Senator from South Dakota, member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Mike Rounds joins me. Nice to talk to you, Senator. And Senator, what questions did you have going into that hearing, and did you get your answers?
Thanks, Greta. Yes, look, here's what I discussed. I wanted to know specifically about the Iranian situation and about just exactly how serious the Iranian threat was. Most of my questions were directed to the CIA director. And specifically what I wanted to know is number one, were they rebuilding their ability to offer offensive missile-type weapon systems, both short-term and intermediate-range weapon systems? The answer was yes. I asked them whether or not they were continuing to move forward with their attempts to redouble their efforts on their nuclear program while they were offering to negotiate as well. And the answer was yes. I asked whether or not the Iranians were rebuilding their defensive capabilities that had been destroyed by the United States and Israel earlier. The answer was yes. In all of those cases, my focus was on the fact that the president made the right choice when he decided that this was the best time in which to actually address the Iranian problem that we've got. There is never a good time to go to war. You pick the best time that you have available, and the president made the right choice. I just wanted to make it clear to the American people in a public setting that there were real reasons why we had to address the threat coming from Iran. Iran being the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world, and they were continuing to promote that and to go after Americans around the Middle East. So that's where my questioning was at, and it was all designed to basically refocus on the fact that let's forget about the term imminent. It was, are they planning on attacking? Are they rebuilding? And at what point would we have the best opportunity to address the situation and with the least amount of threat to young men and women who are going to have to carry out that attack?
Generally, from the Senate Intel Committee and also the Foreign Relations Committee, is that everybody's on the same team and that everyone's just asking questions and asking questions. We're all Americans and we have sort of a common enemy, which is outside our border or sleeper cells within. Did you get a sense today, walking away, that this was the type of hearing where everyone was trying to get information, do an assessment, or did you feel that it was infected by politics?
Look, you're never going to have an open hearing in which there aren't some political questions being asked. Our Democrat colleagues tried to ask some gotcha questions. When did you talk to the president? When didn't you talk to the president? What did he say? And so forth. That's to be expected. They can ask that. But I thought the team that was in front of us did a very good job of standing on their own, of explaining the situations. They didn't lose their temper. They were straightforward. And I suspect that, as in most cases, when we're behind closed doors, we have a little bit more of a direct line of communication, and we can talk in a little more seriousness about the real threats that we face here in the United States. And at that point, as I've shared with people in the past, it's a lot more in common with one another because we know that there's no TV cameras in which some of our folks might want to be grandstanding.
Was there any question asked where the response was, I don't know, I'll get back to you? A serious question.
I don't believe that there was. I think there was one item in which one of our members ran out of time and asked a question and didn't have time for the answer, and there a lot of time. And I think Tulsi Gabbard said, I will take that for the record and I will return the response to you. That's the only one that I recall.
And are you intending to have this behind closed doors? Because one of the overriding questions is, are we safe or not safe? And I guess your closed door question and answer would give us a better idea.
That's right. And look, we never say we are totally safe because we never want to let our guard down. I can tell you that it would help a lot if we had the Department of Homeland Security fully funded right now so that the terrorist watch organizations within them we're actually operating right now. Our Democrat colleagues know this. Look, at some stage of the game, the rank and file members are going to go to their leadership and say, it's time to end this thing. Let's figure out the path forward. And when that happens, we'll get something done.
Senator Mike Rounds, great state, South Dakota. Thank you, sir. And coming up, a celebrity's home is invaded. Who was it? That one, the record continues.
All across the nation, People can't stop talking about Carl Higbie. And Frontline for the big news they need to know. Watch Carl Higbie, Frontline, weeknights.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
You moved in. You nested.
Hey, what are you doing?
You partied. You cuddled. You made egg rolls. You slept in. Or tried to. And you kept growing. Now it's time for the next chapter. With Open Door, get an all-cash offer for your home in 24 hours. Because saying goodbye should be the hardest part. Move into your future with Open Door.
What a scare in Thailand. A man got way too close to the famous Mudeng. Yesterday, a man hopped the fence and entered the habitat of the pygmy hippo. Footage shows the man holding a tablet and taking a video of one of the pygmy hippos in the habitat. At the time, zookeepers are busy caring for other animals. The zoo says the man was in the enclosure for a minute or two before he was arrested. He's been charged with trespassing. The zoo says Mudeng and her mother, Jana, were both startled. They weren't expecting any guests. Thanks for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take, is up next. Stay with Newsmax.